The parameter that changes everything. A new economic framework in the age of information symmetry. The shift from information asymmetry to information symmetry is rewriting the rules of capitalism. And the 8 billion connected, incentivized human brains will ultimately become the world's greatest asset. This is not a utopian fantasy, but a logical deduction based on a change in core parameters. When the core operating parameter of human society shifts from information asymmetry to information symmetry, everything from institutions and economies to human nature will be restructured. Labor commitments will replace debt as the foundation of value. Public markets will supplant private exploitation as the mechanism of distribution. AI will become a neutral judge based on real-world outcomes, and the collective power of 8 billion brains will be activated as a global public asset. The core parameter that changes everything, from asymmetry to symmetry. If we could change one core parameter of the human social operating system, the answer would undoubtedly be information. For centuries, the dominant parameter in the physical world was information asymmetry. Information was scarce and costly to acquire, locked away in books, institutions, and the hands of authorities. Controlling information meant wielding power, a logic that shaped society into a hierarchical pyramid of filtered knowledge, defining our institutions, markets, and governments. The birth of the internet completely upended this parameter. With its core being information symmetry, the theoretical and increasingly practical ability for everyone to access the same information at the same time. Information barriers have crumbled, social hierarchies have flattened, and power has begun to decentralize. Yet the central problem today is that we are still running the new world of information symmetry on the old operating system of the information asymmetry era. It is like attaching a 100-mile-per-hour engine to an ox cart. The cart stumbles, the engine teeters on the brink of burnout, and our institutions, economic models, and even brains conditioned by the physical world cannot adapt to the new parameters of the internet age. The entire system is trapped in a persistent tug-of-war between future possibilities and the outdated frameworks of the present. 2. The nature of the problem. Not inhuman evil, but parameter incompatibility. We habitually attribute the world's problems to bad people, assuming that if only politicians were kinder, capitalists less greedy, and vested interest willing to let go, everything would improve. But this is a classic cognitive bias. The real issue is not human depravity, but that all our brains were conditioned in a physical world of information asymmetry, making them inherently unable to comprehend the internet's world of information symmetry. In the physical world, the scarcity, cost, and asymmetry of information forged a survival algorithm in the human brain. Control information flows to seize power, block information to protect oneself, transmit information hierarchically to establish order, and treat information as a zero-sum game. This algorithm was rational and effective in the physical world, but it becomes completely obsolete in the internet era. The abundance and accessibility of information make control impossible, blockades futile, hierarchies meaningless, and cooperation far more rewarding than zero-sum competition. The tragedy lies here. Using a physical world brain to understand and operate an internet world is like asking a fish to comprehend flight or a bird to understand diving. This is not a moral failure, but a cognitive version mismatch. Politicians are not bad people, they are simply applying 19th century cognitive frameworks to 21st century problems. Entrepreneurs are not greedy, they are using industrial-era competitive logic to navigate information age challenges. Ordinary people are not apathetic, they have been trained by old parameters to see scarcity, not symbiosis. The so-called vested interests are merely those who still interpret the world through outdated parameters. There are no bad people in the world, only people whose cognition has not yet been upgraded. 3. A new economic vision in the age of information symmetry, the public account centered on labor commitments. Redesigning the global economy around the new parameter of information symmetry requires a foundational shift: labor commitments. Every person, simply by existing in society, makes an implicit promise to contribute labor. In the old world, this promise was captured piecemeal by employers, markets, and other institutions. In the new world, it will be scaled and accounted for as a foundational asset, not a debt to be repaid. Imagine each individual's personal account containing a labor commitment, the debt they owe to society over their lifetime, with society advancing an equivalent cash asset in return. Calculated at 50,000 units per person, the aggregated labor commitments of 8 billion people form a $40 trillion public account. This is not capital created through exploitation, but a collective capacity rooted in human labor intent, the world's largest public asset. This $40 trillion public account will fundamentally reshape the global economic landscape. 1. Redefine the global equity market. According to Goldman Sachs data from October 2025, the total market capitalization of global equities is approximately $12.8 trillion. The public account can invest $13 trillion to acquire 80% ownership of all listed companies at a premium. Existing shareholders receive cash compensation. The stock market does not disappear, but becomes part of the public market, with data migrated to public infrastructure, and the economic center of gravity shifts irrevocably. 2. Liberate global governments. IMF data from October 2025 shows that global government debt exceeds $11 trillion, a constraint on public investment and a burden of intergenerational wealth transfer. The public account can allocate $20 trillion to settle all sovereign debt and leave fiscal surpluses, freeing governments from bond market constraints and ending debt ceiling crises and intergenerational debt servitude. 3. Invest in humanity's future. The remaining $7 trillion will fund innovation and infrastructure, prioritizing green energy, biomedical research, global transportation networks, and other projects that are too large, too long-term, or too public in nature to attract private capital, laying the material and social foundation for the next century. 4. The global superfactory and universal dividends. The logic of value distribution in public markets. When the public account holds a majority stake in global productive capacity, a new global superfactory emerges. Not a single physical location, but a network controlled by the public market. Not a command economy, but a collaborative economy. Not owned by billionaires, but by every person. The public market connects global means of production, operating through shared infrastructure, open standards, and coordinated incentives, replacing the isolated profit center model. As a collective belonging to all humanity, the global superfactory enables unprecedented value distribution, universal dividends. Value created by the superfactory is no longer captured by a fortunate few shareholders, but flows directly back to the people whose labor and consumption sustain it. The public account issues a proprietary currency, backed not by gold or debt, but by the real productive capacity of the globe, distributed as dividends to all. These dividends activate global consumption, which drives demand, which in turn expands production, creating a positive economic cycle fueled not by credit, but by real productive capacity. The essence of labor commitments, a reciprocal social contract, not debt. Understanding this new economic model requires a core shift in thinking. Labor commitments are not loans that need to be repaid in the traditional sense. They are a perpetual obligation owed not to banks or landlords, but to the public market and to each other in an interdependent society. You always owe a debt of labor to the society that nurtures you, and society always reciprocates by rewarding the value you create through currency, dividends, and access to resources. This is not debt. It is reciprocity, a formalized, scaled version of the basic social contract. The currency issued by the public account is accepted not through state fiat, but by the collective backing of all the world's factories, farms, data centers, and the hands of every laborer. Its credit is anchored in the productive capacity of all humanity. The structure of the future, parallel systems, and the emergent logic of information. The underlying logic of the physical world and the internet world differ fundamentally, embodied in a physics metaphor. The physical world follows E is equal to m times c to the power of 2, where mass dominates and energy is the release of mass. The internet world follows E over c is equal to m times c, where information energy dominates, and the mass of information depends on its traceability and propagation speed. This difference extends to social structures as a distinction between series and parallel. The physical world is a series structure dominated by mass. Following the logic of sequence, hierarchy, and control, information flows through narrow channels, making it manipulable. The internet world is a parallel structure dominated by information, following the logic of parallelism, distribution, and uncontrollability. Information travels through countless channels, with alternative paths always available, making control an illusion. AI inherits the internet's parallel structure, operating across countless nodes, processing data in parallel, and functioning through distributed networks, making parallelism the core structure of the future. In a parallel structured world, blocking information is futile, controlling it is impossible, and the only meaningful action is contributing better ideas. When channels are abundant enough, the best ideas win automatically through the structure itself, not through power or capital. This is the emergent logic of information. Good ideas naturally converge, spread, and take root in parallel networks. 7. The good idea economy. AI as a neutral judge based on real-world outcomes. Parallel structures enable the emergence of good ideas, and the combination of 8 billion human brains plus AI becomes the governance structure of the future. Aligned incentives transform human self-interest into social contribution. The final piece of this new economic model is a sustained incentive mechanism, when good ideas and optimal technology combinations are implemented to benefit society. AI delivers precise rewards based on real-world outcomes. This mechanism drives people to actively learn science and technology, generating a steady stream of good ideas and forming a good idea economy. In the old world, value is adjudicated by power and capital. Power determines right and wrong, capital determines worth. Good ideas can be buried, bad ideas celebrated. In the new world of information symmetry, AI becomes a neutral judge. It does not care about identity or wealth, only the real-world outcomes of ideas. How much energy is saved, how much pollution is reduced, how much efficiency is improved, how many people are benefited. AI quantifies, tracks, and attributes these outcomes, delivering diverse rewards accordingly. Rewards take rich, multidimensional forms: economic rewards, dividends, basic income, project funding. Social rewards, reputation, influence, attribution rights. Developmental rewards, access to learning resources, data, and computing power. Meaning-based rewards, the knowledge that one has truly changed the world. With AI as assistance, all rewards are precise, fair, and predictable, creating a self-reinforcing positive feedback loop. Learning science and technology gives generating good ideas, gives AI selecting and implementing them, gives benefiting society, gives receiving rewards, gives more people learning science and technology, gives generating more good ideas. At the heart of this cycle is a simple yet profound truth: people only actively learn what is useful. Incentive structures shape human behavior. When AI guarantees that every good idea benefiting society is fairly rewarded, everyone becomes a lifelong learner, actively seeking optimal technology combinations. Each person asks, could the next good idea come from me? 8. Activating 8 billion brains, the world's largest public asset. The ultimate goal of the good idea economy is to fully activate 8 billion human brains, not to turn people into machines, but to maximize the operating power of every brain, making each a potential generator of good ideas and the world's largest public asset. The core difference between the old and new worlds lies in the activation state of brains and the logic of economic operation. The old world only activated a minority of brains. A few innovated in R&D and labs, while most executed mechanically. In the new world of information symmetry, every brain has the potential to be activated. A farmer might devise more efficient planting techniques. A worker design safer production processes. A teacher explore more effective teaching methods. A child propose entirely new perspectives. And a retiree contribute decades of accumulated wisdom. When information shifts from asymmetry to symmetry, the cost of accessing information drops to zero. Distribution power expands from the few to all. AI becomes a fair judge of value, and incentives shift from capital logic to contribution logic. Each brain is no longer an isolated, idle, or repressed individual asset, but a connected, activated, and rewarded global public asset. This is not rhetoric. It is a structural prophecy for the future. The ultimate form of the economy is to make every brain an asset to the world. 9. A reality check. Global debt data confirms the failure of old parameters. The above vision is not a flight of fancy. The IMF's World Economic Outlook from October 2025, with its global debt data, reveals the true state of the global economy and underscores the urgency of the public market vision in the age of information symmetry. Core facts. Global debt is highly concentrated and growing at an unbalanced rate. In 2025, total global government debt exceeds $11 trillion, with 2/3 concentrated in the top 5 economies: the United States, China, Japan, the United Kingdom, and France, totaling $7.48 trillion. The U.S. alone accounts for nearly 1/3 of global debt at $3.83 trillion. China $1.87 trillion and Japan $0.98 trillion follow, with the top 3 together holding 60% of global debt. European nations like the UK, France, and Italy also rank high, burdened by persistent fiscal policies and aging populations. In terms of growth rates, the U.S. added $2.9 trillion plus 8.4%. China added $2.2 trillion plus 13.6%. And Japan added only $200 billion plus 2%, though its debt-to-GDP ratio remains a staggering 230%, slightly declining in 2025. Insights behind the data. The old parameters are no longer sustainable. 1. Debt settlement hinges on distribution mechanisms. The public account's $20 trillion is mathematically sufficient to settle $11 trillion in global government debt. But the challenge lies in directing funds precisely to different nations while avoiding moral hazard, a core problem the public market model must solve. 2. The trap of debt-driven growth. The high debt growth rates of the U.S. and China confirm that the global economy still relies on the old parameters of the information asymmetry era debt-driven growth. The tug-of-war between the ox cart and the engine continues. 3. The failure of old credit anchors. Japan's debt paradox is a classic example of old parameters failing. Long-term deflation and stagnation leave Japan unable to repay existing debt even as it slows borrowing, trapped in a cycle of rolling over old debt with new. With global GDP growth projected at just 3% in 2025, while major economies see debt growth exceeding 8%, the rate of debt accumulation outpaces economic growth, proving that old credit anchors, state tax revenue, debt are failing, and new anchors, human productive capacity, labor commitments are urgently needed. 4. The real-world significance of labor commitments. Sky-high global debt means generations of future tax revenue will be used to repay old obligations. The labor commitment model essentially replaces state tax revenue with human productive capacity as the new foundation of credit, returning the economy to the essence of value creation. X. Conclusion. From distributing the past to co-creating the future, contribution is the most rational choice. The new economic framework in the age of information symmetry must accomplish 2 core tasks. 1. Distribute the past. Use public capital to settle historical debts, revalue human worth through labor commitments, and ensure vested interests are fairly accounted for, achieving justice for the past. 2. Co-create the future. Use AI and public systems to allocate resources, deploy optimal technology combinations for global benefit, and make green value the new currency, achieving efficiency for the future. Connecting these tasks is the core change brought by information symmetry. When the cost of accessing information drops to 0, blocking information loses all meaning, and contribution becomes the most rational choice in a parallel structured world. The action agenda of this new economic framework is to actively contribute good ideas that benefit society, not out of selflessness or greatness, but because in a parallel network, this is the optimal solution for aligning individual and social value. When 8 billion biological computers begin operating on this logic, when AI selects and implements the best ideas every day, and when the emergence of good ideas becomes the social norm, human society will no longer require cumbersome management, only continuous contribution. Economics, where every brain becomes an asset to the world. This sentence is a vision for the future, the core of the new economic framework, and the starting point of all change. When information symmetry becomes the core parameter of human society, and the collective power of 8 billion brains is activated, everything in the world will begin to change.